evening. You are with the Urban Debate here. I'm Sahar Zaman. And this is what we're discussing tonight. All the concerns that were raised regarding the Bharat Biotech vaccine for COVID, the Covaxin. Ever since the go-ahead that has been given to two vaccines in India yesterday, this is regarding the SII's Covishield and the Bharat Biotech's Covaxin. There were multiple doubts, fears, concerns that were raised only regarding the Covaxin by Bharat Biotech. And this was primarily because there was no efficacy data available. Primarily because this is a vaccine which is still under trial in phase 3. And the efficacy data would be out only later, after trial 3 concludes in a couple of days' time, and the efficacy data would then be available in a couple of months' time, by February or March this year. But keeping in mind all of that criticism, today, Bharat Biotech's chief leader, the director, Mr. Krishna Ella, spoke out. And this was not just a simple speaking out, it was a point-by-point rebuttal on all the criticism that Bharat Biotech's Covaxin has faced in the past days, in the past 1 day particularly. Now, this was sometimes an emotional message and at other times a very stern message regarding the standing of Bharat Biotech. Also regarding what is known about the Covaxin so far in phase 1 and phase 2. He has justified why the emergency use under restricted use that has been given the go-ahead by the Drugs Controller of India. He has also said that there is nothing hidden. There is no data that has been hidden. It is all available in the public domain. He has gone to the extent in asking why people are busy mudslinging on a brand which is not just Indian, which has been manufacturing vaccines at a global level. But the question tonight to ask is, does this settle the debate on the Bharat Biotech's Covaxin, or does it further raise questions on whether this was an early go-ahead that was given? Should the drug controllers have waited for a few more months till the efficacy data was out, because that percentage is still not there? Let's take a listen in to some of those responses that have come in today from Krishna Ella.
I've come from a small agriculture family from Tamil Nadu. I don't know anything about business, or neither my family knows about business. I know only one thing, is a science. Nothing else I know it. And I think none of my family members or any associated with any political parties or anything. And I'll just tell you that I don't want it's a very confusing slide, but we put all transparently every data when we submit it to each committee and when we got approval, when we done the trial, everything is put in the plan. People question, oh, we are not transparent. I don't know what is transparency to me when I put everything in the black and white like this. How did they get license? On a phase 2, 100 people immunization data, they don't have even 1,000 to 200 people safety data also. Whereas I have 25,000 people safety data in this country. I have 1,000 people of immunization data in this country. So when other company got emergency license based on the UK data, not on the Indian data. Indian data, only 100 people data, nothing else. You look at Oxford AstraZeneca, they have given 4 grams of paracetamol for every subject who are vaccinated. That means they are suppressing the adverse reaction by giving a paracetamol. Whereas we have not given a paracetamol to the volunteer. So whatever the adverse reaction that is captured in the clinical trial is exactly 100%, even if it is good or bad, it's captured in 100% real time.
All right, those are a lot of questions, criticism, cynicism that the Bharat Biotech earlier this evening has tried to respond to, has tried to answer. But does this settle the debate on the efficacy, on the workings of the Covaxin? Let's throw this open to our panelists today here. And they're all coming in from the technical medical field to help us understand this better. On what is so far known about the Covaxin, is it enough to have been given that go-ahead? We have Dr. Ram Vishwakarma, advisor at the CSIR, which is Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. Dr. Om Shrivastav, Director of the Infectious Diseases Jaslok Hospital and Research Centre, Dr. Anant Farke, who is also the founding member of All India Drug Action Network, Dr. Subramaniam Swaminathan with us, Director of Infectious Diseases, Glen Eagles Global, and Dr. Balasubramanian, who is the convener of the Advisory Committee of Immunization at the Indian Academy of Pediatrics. Appreciate you all being with us here, and these are some real technical understandings of what has been raised in the past days regarding the Covaxin. My first question here to you, Dr. Ram Vishwakarma, are you satisfied in all that has been addressed by the Bharat Biotech today?
Without going into what a particular company says, I will say that the controversy that has come about, we have to reflect and see the situation that we are in. And having been associated, having known the processes of drug controller firsthand, if 20 people who are subject expert representing different clinical discipline take certain decision, I think we should be patient enough to sort of wait for the more data to come out. I absolutely agree that we need data and data will come. I am told this evening that there are a number of publications which are under peer review, and some of the publications have been made available to me. So I think we should consider this in the backdrop of what is going on, and actually the fear that has been created by this emergence of new variant from UK. And as you have reported today itself, the number has gone up, and I can tell you that this evening number is even higher than what you have reported. So I think as a backup plan, we need to have different set of vaccine, because the serum vaccine is basically looking at spike protein like every other vaccine, Pfizer, Moderna, everything. And this is one vaccine which is basically the classical approach, the oldest approach of vaccine development, that you have heat or chemical killed attenuated virus itself. So it will have multiple epitopes of the whole virus is presented to the immune system. So I will have a middle of the road argument. I don't believe that we should go to both the extremes, and I think the truth always, like they say, in the middle. And we should wait for this data to come up. And I think the chairman of the company has made this passionate appeal. And I think this data will come. And then we will have, like in science, there is no substitute of peer-reviewed data. And I think that part I agree with, that there's an expectation. And I'm sure, and also please read the language which regulator has looked at very clearly. They have inserted this word in clinical trial mode. So I think I'm looking at it that, of course, they will very closely watch, and there will be very strict inclusion-exclusion criteria. So it will not be like, really roll out, but it will be very strictly used in a clinical trial mode. So more data is available.
Right.
And I'm hearing that, almost out of 25,000, 20,000 plus enrollment number I'm hearing. How correct that is, I don't know. But I will take a sort of a middle position on this argument.
All right, so you're willing to, of course, give this more time. Yes, Dr. Ram, appreciate you, middle of the path approach there, as you say. Dr. Om Shrivastav, in what we've heard from the Bharat Biotech so far, a lot of questions that have been answered. Of course, we have also seen in what can easily be called an emotional outburst here as well, of what we heard from Mr. Krishna Ella, saying that Bharat Biotech, this mudslinging that it is facing and the way it is being attacked is absolutely unfair. We are an Indian company and a matter of great pride. We have a global standing. We have proven ourselves, and why being attacked in this manner. But the root question of the efficacy not being available, that still remains, and that obviously cannot be answered right now because this is still under phase 3 trial.
Very true. And look, part of the stand that he has taken is reasonable and justified, in that as of now, all the vaccines are only for emergency use. And so a lot of the trial processes and the vaccine validation have been taken a step quicker, only so that it should be made available globally, so that the maximum number of people are benefited in the shortest possible time. Having said that, there's no way you are going to be able to circumvent the process of scientific validation. Whatever data you are saying, it must stand scientific scrutiny. If it's not able to stand scientific scrutiny, it's going to fall flat on its face. So I think that there is a place for the emotional part of what Mr. Krishnavella has said, but there is also a need to put out the data as quickly as possible for people to look at what is the data that you're presenting and then say or endorse the vaccine that yes, it's going to work or it's not going to work. So I'm not sure if there is a place for approaching this only emotionally. I'm not sure if there's a place to say, look, unless we have all the scientific data, we're not going to do anything. There is a need for the vaccine to be made available. There are going to be more than one vaccine candidate which will be available in the very foreseeable future, 3, 4, 6 months, who knows, in the shortest possible time. All of them will need to go through the same process. They will need to go through an identical process before it is offered to a single human being, because you need only one adverse event before this kind of a program is going to fall flat on its face. So very important. It's very important to observe the sanctity and the dignity of the scientific process. But when it comes to a situation like this, there will be situations where people will allow for the emergency use of vaccines, because it is at this time with the numbers that are being, the numbers that are climbing, the new strains that we are talking about, we don't even know whether this new strain, how lethal or how innocuous it is going to be. There is a case to be made for a vaccine that has got authentic data and standing scientific scrutiny to be given public use approval.
Right. And you're also saying, of course, this is exceptional circumstances that we're looking at. And also, as Dr. Ram had pointed out, this was also keeping in mind in the rise in cases of the new strain, of the UK strain that is now being reported in India as well. Dr. Anant Farke from the All India Drug Action Network, the IDAN, we've heard from the IDAN yesterday as well in very strong statements saying that they were absolutely shocked on how the due process has been compromised in giving the go-ahead to Bharat Biotech right now. Has that changed? Has IDAN now changed its point of view, keeping in mind what the drug controllers said in its restricted use of the Covaxin and the clarifications that have been given out by Bharat Biotech today?
Yes, I have studied both the press release of the DCGI as well as what has been claimed now, and I will quickly continue on scientific basis. The scientific basis is as follows, that you have to complete phase 3 clinical trials. We are very hopeful and very optimistic about this vaccine. So there is no question about that. And we are happy that the phase 1, phase 2 trial have come up with very good results even for this Covaxin also. So let me put this on record. The main problem is of phase 3 trials, which is efficacy trials, and those trials have not been completed. No data from phase 3 trial of Covaxin has even been submitted. Now, unless you submit and the regulator examines the data and gives approval, then the whole process of approval has no value. So unless phase 3 data has been submitted, there cannot be a scientific basis to say that this vaccine is effective. It is safe. It is immunogenic. Phase 1, phase 2 tell us about that. But phase 3, otherwise you dispense with phase 3, isn't it? Why was the vaccine given approval now and not in November? Because we're waiting for phase 3 data and phase 3 scrutiny, which has not happened. So we hope that this data will come, and we very much hope and look forward that this vaccine will get approval. But optimism cannot score over science. And therefore, I suppose we still stand that this was a wrong decision on the part of with due respect to everybody, to the science, to the integrity. We are not having any motives to the science. Only saying that just please show us, or to the drug controller at least, the efficacy data, which is absent in case of the Covaxin. In case of the Serum Institute, also, the Indian data has not been submitted. But the Brazilian and British data has been submitted, and there is a leeway for them to get approval because of the particular conditions in the Drugs and Cosmetic Act. See, there is a rule. I'll read out very briefly, not the whole rule, but I'm just telling you the title. that there is these new rules which have been approved in 2019, which give a leeway to Indian companies if the data from well-regulated countries is available. In that case, under emergency conditions or because of certain conditions, the drug control it can give permission subject to certain conditions, even when the Indian clinical data are not
Right.
available, free data. But that is a little small, little window which I think somebody can justifiably argue to a certain extent for Serum Institute. But we are not happy with that. We feel that the Indian data should have been submitted by Serum Institute also analyzed for phase 3, and both Covaxin and Covishield should have phase 3 data available for Indian regulators, and on that basis the permission should be given. At least for the Serum Institute, they have that little small provision.
That's right.
In section 7 of Rule 80.
Okay.
That you can use that, but unfortunately for Covaxin, no such provision exists, and it's really unfortunate. And I won't blame the scientists at all. It is some political decision at the top, the under pressure of which it seems that the regulator has given approval. So hats off to the scientists, all the people who are doing manufacturing also, they may come up with excellent vaccine, but unfortunately without phase 3 data, I think science does not allow us to go beyond a certain limit in optimism. That's my basic case, our basic case, and we stand by our earlier statement again.
Dr. Anand, that's a very important point you've raised here, that this is not, of course, to bring down the morale of scientists involved in this trial here, but more importantly, on all the guidelines that are available that should be followed here. Dr. Swaminathan, in your view, what changes? This clarification here that has come in from Bharat Biotech, and whether it should be seen as a clarification or more of a sharing of information. When they say that phase 1, phase 2 has proven to be safe, and that is enough to be given the go-ahead under exceptional circumstances. Do you agree with that?
First, the question is it really an exceptional circumstance? Everybody is making the UK variant to be a boogeyman. Public Health England has already said the risk of severe disease and mortality is not increased with the UK variant. Absolutely data showing that there doesn't seem to be any data that reinfections happen with the UK variant. The UK variant is more transmissible, certainly, but then that happens with the virus as it mutates. But it does not cause a different illness, it does not cause more mortality, it is not more dangerous than the existing strain, and it does not cause reinfections. So let's stop blaming the UK variant for all our own internal problems. That's number one. The UK variant has got nothing to do with anything. I suspect it's got a lot to do with certain other issues in England. And this is something they've known for 2.5 months, not something that happened in the end of December. It happened sometime in early October. So let's forget about the UK variant. Now, please understand the last 24 hours, my phone has been ringing non-stop from physician colleagues who are asking me my position on the vaccine and whether they should, in fact, take it for themselves and recommend it for their patients. Now, this is a serious issue. Please understand, when the medical fraternity is starting to get jittery about the vaccine, it's going to be really bad. You do not want to have a situation where the medical fraternity itself is a bit unsure about whether this whole thing is a good idea. So I think putting this out with good quality information is the only way to go. Why are we in a hurry? Please understand, our COVID situation is a much better situation than the rest of the world. Our numbers are at record low and they are falling on a daily basis. Mortality is continuing to decline. New infections are continuing to decline. So let's not make an emergency where it is just an urgency. It is an urgency, but it's not a true emergency like it is in the Western world. And please understand that the positive vibes that we have in vaccination is too precious for us to break with, these kind of issues creeping in. We cannot have a situation where people start doubting the safety of the vaccine or the efficacy of the vaccine, and therefore probably soft signals going around saying it's a bad idea. We don't want that. Why are we doing this? Why don't we just have good quality data being put out in the public domain and let people see for themselves and let them be convinced? It should not be that, I or anybody else for that matter has to go around telling everybody, no, the vaccine is great. I will tell you so, but you have to take my word for it. Let them see for themselves. Let the data speak for itself. That is the best way forward. Otherwise, I'll tell you what will happen. There will be other people, fringe elements, who come in saying, "Oh my God, this is a dangerous vaccine. Are you going to recommend it for your patients?" I really don't want that happening, because I think this is too precious an intervention for us
Okay.
to take it lightly. And I think the data should speak for itself. Please understand, India's strength has been in manufacture of vaccines. We are great at that. In terms of development of new vaccines, it's fairly new to us. We have been developing new vaccines in the last couple of years. It's not a traditional strength, and therefore, obviously,
Right.
there are going to be questions
Yeah,
about
but
it.
that's
Yes, the
the
technology.
track record that Bharat Biotech has been defending as well. That it has a track record for the world's first vaccine on the Zika virus, on chikungunya as well, and it comes with an impeccable reputation to be facing this kind of mudslinging and questioning today. Let me take that point. You've raised several points here, Dr. Swaminathan. I'm taking that to Dr. Balasubramaniam here with us here as well. Dr. Balasubramaniam, in what we've heard from the Bharat Biotech so far, should these be questions raised against the Bharat Biotech, or should it be questioning? Should we still be questioning in calling this a hurried green signal to the Covaxin, no matter how restricted or emergency use is the category that we put it under?
I'll put forth my views after sharing a joke which I saw just now in one of the WhatsApp groups. Somebody had sent a message: Pfizer vaccine is Scotch, and Serum Institute vaccine is Indian manufactured foreign liquor, and Bharat Biotech is Desi stuff. In fact, it is unfair to add such tax to these vaccines. Before we go into it, let us go into some fundamental facts. Is there a need for emergency use of the vaccine? The answer would be yes. Now we have 3 vaccines available. What is the data available for each of them? If you ask me, out of the 3 vaccines which are currently being used across, which are going to be used soon in the world, Pfizer has got perhaps the best data, followed by AstraZeneca and Serum Institute vaccine, followed by Bharat Biotech, and before that, even the Sputnik vaccine has got more data than the Bharat Biotech. I think we should not confuse patriotism with science. Dr. Krishna Ella made an emotional appeal saying that the vaccine should be used. But if you look at the story of the COVID vaccine, you know that the story has unfolded itself very rapidly within a year in a record time. And we know we need to give the vaccine to a large number of people throughout the world. But at the same time, we should never compromise on the safety. I don't think if you look at the vaccine history, I don't think any vaccine has been used widely without phase 3 data. And I went through the recommendations of the DCGI and the statements from the ICMR. They are very cautious. They are saying that we are to get the phase 3 data very soon. Until then, this will be on a clinical trial mode. I don't think anybody should object to use of Bharat Biotech vaccine, Covaxin, on a clinical trial mode right now. But I'm afraid we don't have enough data to use it across the country right now. And as already pointed out, I mean, there is no threat of the mutant strain causing a second or third wave. Most scientists predict that India might get away without the second and third wave. On the other hand, if something is going to happen in the form of serious adverse effects to the immunization with the new vaccine, the anti-vaccine lobby is waiting, and they will destroy the campaign. They will sabotage the campaign of even the good COVID-19 vaccines. I think there will be a lot of vaccine hesitancy. So we have to be careful. we have to be patriotic. We have to be proud of Bharat Biotech. There is no doubt at all. In fact, I also read from their sources that they are going to come out with a nasal vaccine, a single drop vaccine, which may be more effective than all the vaccines available. But currently, before using it widely, we must have hard data from the phase 3 clinical trials. It is not only safe for the government, safe for the Indian public, it would also be safe for the company. That's my submission.
Absolutely. Well pointed out there, Dr. Balasubramaniam. Dr. Raman, what we've seen in all your voices that we've heard here, nothing much has changed in all those concerns or doubts being raised regarding the Bharat Biotech's Covaxin, or what we'd heard yesterday through the day today, even after Bharat Biotech's press conference today. Nothing's much changed. Do you think that this really settles the concerns of an efficacy data here with Bharat Biotech's own submission that phase 3 clinical trials, which would conclude in the coming few days or weeks, and that efficacy data would be available much later, months later, only in February and March, in following the due process? Do you think that we should be looking at an unexpected emergency scenario in the intervening months here, where Covaxin could be administered without that data?
Yeah, so I think without going into merit of the vaccine, I'm on the side that, we should not get into this. I think Dr. Swaminathan made it very, very, very clearly, that argument that we should not sort of anti-vaxxer sentiment strengthening, the confidence of the clinicians and the confidence of the patient. Those are the very important aspect at this time of emergency. So I think this is all healthy debate, and expectation of more data absolutely required, because without scientific data, it's very difficult to make any conclusion for anybody. It's as simple as that. And that too, not by word of mouth, not to by a rigorous peer review process through which the science grows only by this. Science is self-correcting process, and that's, I think, I consider this a very healthy debate. This is a peer review happening actually right now, what we are discussing. But I would like to point out that regulators' dilemma. I can tell you, in the month of April, 20 top regulators of the world met somewhere in Europe, and they came out with certain revised guidelines, including US FDA and everybody. And you know what they did, which I think today we will be making the same kind of debate. They totally said that we don't need animal challenge data. We will allow, if you show me animal safety, we will allow you first in human for COVID vaccine. That was like a revolution in drug therapeutic and vaccine development. So regulator agreed and they allowed. Second thing they allowed, we will allow adaptive trial. We will allow you to do phase 1, phase 2 together. So while you are looking at safety, you are also looking at efficacy. So most of these trials, Moderna, Pfizer, have been done like this. So, and then they allowed, third thing, that while these adaptive trials are happening, you can actually go on manufacturing your vaccine in the anticipation of these things will happen. I think these are remarkable intervention of global regulators. Many of us who are like purists will say that, of course, these standards have been diluted, but we are dealing with a once in a century or once in a 3-century threat. And I really do not agree with this argument that we are safe in India. Last week, there are two cryptic statements, I must remind my fellow colleagues, coming from WHO chief. He says that we have not seen the worst yet. Last week, the Dr. Fauci recommended to United States President that we have not seen the worst yet. So there is all the epidemiologists globally, those are working, and the people who are working, and people like us who are doing sequencing here in India, large-scale sequencing. The sudden 1 week, 11, 18 mutation in the spike protein alone happening. This is not usual. The virus, I know the virus mutates slowly. So far, we have several mutations, but now it is hitting the mutation. One mutation is hitting the very heart of the interaction of the spike protein to the receptor. So I think we should not go into this lull that we are special in India or something.
Okay. And so we should continue looking at this as an emergency situation, not really dropping our guard with the numbers of COVID which are now beginning to climb down in India. We should still be looking at this as an emergency emergency situation, which is why perhaps the DCGI gives that go-ahead to Covaxin, keeping in mind that emergency situation. This is really a safety net for us at the end of the day, is what you're saying here, Dr. Ram. Dr. Anand Farke, you wanted to step in here on this. Also, while you make your point on how you want to respond to this here, do you think that there should have also been avoidable mudslinging in this controversy? And mind you, this is not just a controversy which is politically motivated by certain members of the opposition parties raising their doubts. This is coming in from the medical community as well. And today, while we've had Bharat Biotech speak out in its defense, it has also raised issues of what they feel is regarding the SII's Covishield as well, saying that trials were never done in India, trials were done outside, and it was still given that go-ahead.
No, I won't get into mudslinging at all. I think that's a political issue I'm not interested in. But I would only like to point out that all the discussion, even in this debate about vaccine safety, is irrelevant. We are not questioning phase 1, phase 2 trial data of immunogenicity and safety. That issue, for the time being, has been settled. The issue is efficacy. So there is no point in talking about any reactions, etc., etc. That issue is not here. We accept that there is some level of the criteria for safety have been met. Now, despite all this, despite the best vaccines in the world, inevitably, per 5 to 10 lakh doses, take any vaccine, you are going to get some serious adverse reactions. It is inevitable. This has been happening in all vaccines. So let us not say there will not be any anaphylaxis or no serious reaction. I am expecting, all of us are expecting serious adverse reactions all over the world for any vaccine that you produce. The frequency will be very less, 1 in 5 lakh, 10 lakh, etc., etc. So that is not an issue that we are raising an idea today. We are saying that phase 3 clinical trial is meant for efficacy trial. That data has not been even presented by Covaxin nor by Covishield Indian data, and that is something which is not acceptable. So we are all for emergency use. We are not questioning vaccines at all. But you cannot throw scientific fundamental principles to the wind.
Okay.
And even the Indian regulatory guidelines, if you see the guidelines, they have taken all this emergency use into consideration and they have not changed the rules. So all that they're saying that your own guidelines of the regulator, the CDSO has come out on 21st September, 3 months back, the framework for regulation, the scientific framework. Don't violate that. Then there are new updated rules 2019. Please don't violate those rules.
Right. Dr. Om, would you agree with that point? Should we break down the question on much simpler terms here? Dr. Om, in stop questioning Bharat Biotech, instead scrutinize the central body's decision on giving that hurried, if you want to call it a hurried go-ahead. This is not the time to be questioning all the good work being done by Bharat Biotech, but question perhaps why guidelines have been refuted, if they have been refuted here, by a central body.
I think that's a fair comment. I think that when there is a due process, it must apply to everybody equally. And that when we look at, a part of a trial that has been done outside the country, are we going to expect data that comes into another population that may be completely different, in the biodiversity, in their biogenetics, in their structure responses, everything becomes different because that population structure is different. That's why there are differences that are made on culture and ethnicity and all of those things. So I think that, when you are going to make a process, it must apply equally to everybody. Yes, I agree with that part. I also think that, this is getting to be muddy waters already. It's going to get muddier still. When there are so many points and counterpoints without any scientific basis, there's no scientific basis to a number of the points that have been raised. None of this is going to be able to stand, it's not going to be cutting any ice in a scientific platform. So I think that all such, while it is great to have a discussion and a debate, everything that comes to the public use must follow a very strict cut and dried scientific process. and that it must be available for everybody to review and view, and only then a comment should be made. Other than that, this is speculation, this is prejudice, this is one person pointing a finger at another set of people, and this is not going to stop. So I think that vaccines with due process having met the standards should be made available. Where due process has not been met, the regulator must justify why permission was given. And if that meets the scrutiny, that meets the standards of people who are evaluating the process, then you should go ahead with it. Other than that, I think that pointing fingers is not going to be adding to any merit of the vaccine process from here.
Right. Dr. Balasubramaniam, would you go ahead and agree with that here, that what has happened now is create some damage instead of doing more good for a vaccine which is completely indigenous, which is tested, tried, manufactured in India with Indian volunteers here, which under different circumstances could have been far more celebrated than raising these doubts right now?
I agree with Satya Prasad that we seem to be in a great hurry putting aside scientific facts. In fact, if you take history of most of the other vaccines which have been introduced into India, such a speed has never been there, whether it is Indian manufactured vaccines or vaccines manufactured abroad. I agree there is an emergency situation, but at the same time, we cannot compromise on safety. Just for the sake of vaccinating, we cannot afford to sacrifice safety, one. Two, nobody is criticizing Bharat Biotech or even the DCGI. Bharat Biotech definitely has done yeoman service to the community by coming out with this vaccine. There is absolutely no doubt. They have completed the phase 1 and 2, and I'm sure even the phase 3 most probably is likely to be as safe as any other vaccine. But until such data arrives, there is no need to hurry up. I don't understand why we should criticize Bharat Biotech also. They definitely are patriotic and they want to get the vaccine introduced. At the same time, the government and the authorities should think twice before having full data on phase 3 trials. Otherwise, if they authorize vaccination, it should be still considered as proceeding on a clinical trial mode. Again, I'm repeating, it would be safe for everyone if that is followed. And if you look at the several accidents which have taken place with vaccine, nobody can say these accidents cannot occur with any of the available vaccines. It can happen, and that can be disastrous to the entire vaccine campaign. It will take us back rather than take us.
All right, Dr.
forward.
Balasubramaniam, hold that thought here. Please stay on with us, because we were going to play out more reactions, more responses here that have come in from Dr. Krishna Ella of the Bharat Biotech. He's also particularly here, as we said at the start of the show, that this has also been part an emotional outburst in that response. And here he specifically stated here on why he feels, and being an Indian company, being targeted in this manner.
It is a practice. Even US government says if you have good immunogenicity data, can be done in emergency authorization. And I think, look at it, the phase Merck Ebola vaccine, 39 subjects and completion EMA 2020, they got November emergency authorization before phase 3 trial. Even Johnson & Johnson Ebola vaccine, only 87 people, they have done it. And they got emergency license in 2019, and they're done in Rwanda immunization program. It is allowed. People are not just, I don't know why Indian companies always targeted by everybody in the world. It is a practice. Even US government says if you have good immunogenicity data, can be done in emergency authorization. And I think, look at it, the phase Merck Ebola vaccine, 39 subjects and completion EMA 2020, they got November emergency authorization before phase 3 trial. Even Johnson and Johnson, Ebola vaccine, only 87 people they have done it, and they got emergency license in 2019, and they are done in Rwanda immunization program. It is allowed. People are not just, I don't know why Indian companies always targeted by everybody in the world.
All right, Dr. Ram, your response here on this, because there was also a follow-up to that statement where he said Indian companies are being targeted, wherein which, without directly naming SII, he talked about the Covishield, which had faced trials outside and is still being given the go-ahead here in India. Would you agree with that argument? Because it's of course important here to have an indigenous product as much as having a safe product that works. Should we be raising issues of being attacked here for being Indian? Because all the concerns that are being raised are coming in from within India on a very, very genuine concern.
Well, I will not go into this debate. I mean, this is certainly not my remit to say anything. I think I would only say that science is universal, evidence is universal, and I think business part, I think I would not like to comment on this statement.
All right. Dr. Om, in your view, this is, of course, keeping in mind the nature of track record of Bharat Biotech that we're looking at. Should it seem unfair in raising certain concerns, in raising questions where one feels that guidelines have not been followed or where an efficacy data that has been missing, should this have been given more time? In us unnecessarily mudslinging on a brand that has its track record, should we have just waited for a few more months then?
We probably should have. We probably should have, because look, I'm firmly of the view that while it is an emergency situation, we are probably going to be rushing into something where we might not have the option of reversing it. Once you've taken a shot of something that you think is very good at this time, in 2 months' time, when you say, oh, look, I've got another vaccine in the market, I want to take this vaccine as well. Now, that's not going to work. You're probably going to need to take the best shot on only one. So while it is true that it is an emergency situation, I'll say it again, I think that paperwork of scientific data is got to be made available, and it's got to be of a pattern, of a standard. It doesn't matter where the company is. If you're an Indian company and you're outstanding, then you are going to find a place anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter what your competitors say. And if you're not somebody who is of that standard, then wherever you may be in the richest country in the world, and the country might be backing your product, but if it is not of a certain standard, it's not going to be selling for any more than a couple of, who knows, couple of hours, couple of days. So I think that if there is merit in the molecule, if there is merit in the vaccine, it will find its place on the entire planet without anyone having to push for it. So I'm not going to comment upon whether an Indian company is being criticized or not. I would like to say that yes, the work that has been done by Bharat Biotech, their track record is very good, and they should be assured in that part. They should be assured that based on the track record,
that's right,
they will be able to find a place maybe a month later, maybe a couple of months later, but they should be able to find a place. If based on the track record, if that's anything to go by, I think they've got something very good on their hands.
Dr. Anant, on certain concerns that were raised regarding the Covishield, do you think that is relevant or valid at this point of time? Such as this was trial which was conducted on volunteers which were outside India, different race, different geographical conditions, and yet be given the go-ahead here in India. They had also, in fact, administered paracetamol on the volunteers to suppress the side effects of the vaccine, something that Krishna says has not been done by Bharat Biotech. Do you think that this is something that should also further be discussed in the public domain, despite a clearance, a complete clear efficacy of a 70% and a clearance that has come in from the DCGI?
No, the point is there is absolutely nothing wrong in doing clinical trials in England and Brazil or wherever. There is absolutely nothing wrong. It adds to the evidence. But the Indian law says, and science also demands, that any vaccine which has proved to be, or any medicine, or any vaccine which is proved to be very useful, has to undergo clinical trial in India. And that is being done by the Serum Institute, which is welcome. But the phase 3 trial data, Serum Institute has not submitted. So I think both Serum Institute and this Bharat Biotech have not submitted data from Indian population, and that's a missing link. And I look forward to that data being submitted, and we hope that it will come out okay. But as I said, hope and optimism cannot replace science. So it's not but something between India versus something else. It is basically we need Indian clinical trials also, but under emergency use, yes, looking at all other evidence, perhaps the regulator can waive the condition for Indian trial. But if that they had to say this, then they could have said this last month itself. See, when phase 1, phase 2 trial data was available, they did not give, the Serum Institute did not apply for use in India because the British part of the whole trial was not completed. So point is, we have to have Indian data, and at least in the case of Covishield, some kind of data is available, whether it is in other countries for efficacy, which has they, according to their regulators, that they are satisfied and they are given a permission. But Indian data are lacking, and whereas in Covaxin, unfortunately, I keep saying that they may be an excellent producer. See, producing high quality material is different from developing a vaccine. So they may be excellent producers, they can be excellent researchers also, but they must follow the usual steps
That's
of
right.
submitting data. So some political pressure from above has come.
All right, and
has
also
impelled them
because
to
this
submit
is
data
this is
prematurely,
an ongoing
and
process. You're saying this is political pressure, but we're moving away from the politics here on this. We really appreciate all the experts, all the voices who've spoken to us today here. This is undoubtedly one of the most detailed discussions here that we've had regarding concerns, technical issues on the Bharat Biotech Covaxin here. What has changed after today's clarification? It is still the efficacy data which is awaited, which is not going to be available before 3 months up to February or March, which has come in by admission by the Bharat Biotech as well. The questions will still remain on was this a hurried green signal, but also more importantly, it will continue to remain a use in only extreme emergency and under restricted conditions. So rest assured, perhaps there is nothing for any of us to fear about. Let's get you more voices that have spoken out on this very issue that we've been discussing. In fact, a very important voice here that came in from the Niti Aayog member, Dr. V.K. Paul, allaying concerns here regarding the Bharat Biotech's Covaxin, saying that permitted vaccines are safe. V.K. Paul also reiterated that one of the vaccines that has been kept as an emergency option only since it is in clinical trial mode. Perhaps that is the key word. That is something that we need to continue weighing further before raising those concerns against the Covaxin. He's also added, in fact, here that it was included because it has proven safety during stage 1 and phase 1 and phase 2 trials data that has been made available. Take a listen in.
Vaccines that have been permitted their decision is based on science, based on norms, and based on data. We would like to assure that the vaccines to be used in the national program will be safe, are safe, and there is no compromise on the safety issue at all. People should really not at all worry about this. There are occasional side effects. These two vaccines have minimal side effects actually, and other countries are rolling out. We will roll out in a most effective manner nationwide in very, very few next days.
And Times Network's correspondent Sharon has also taken us through these ground inputs here, coming in on what's happening, nature of preparedness here, and this is at the airports. This is from Delhi's Indira Gandhi International Airport, the groundwork that has been laid out here for the vaccine drive in India. The vaccine will be stored in different chambers, in different levels. This is going to be in varying temperatures here on whatever given specified temperatures required for each vaccine. Storage facilities have here been equipped with temperatures which is as low as -20 onwards. In fact, provisions that have also been made here for the export of vaccines if required.
We are outside the cargo terminal 2, where you can see that this is the COVID-19 vaccine acceptance area. Now there are about 4 docks. 2 of them are for import and 2 of them have been set aside for export. So these are the areas, these are the docks where these vaccine will be kept. Now if I ask my camera person to turn around and show you, this is another one of the section which has a room, which has a storage room that has a temperature of -20°C. Now remember, we know that a lot of experts have been telling us that it is going to be difficult for India to balance the temperature for COVID-19, and to which the government has said that they are well enough prepared to handle the balance of the temperature of these COVID-19 vaccines. Now that is the area from where the aircraft will be offloading these boxes that are full of COVID-19 vaccines that will be imported to India, and then from here that they will be kept to the storage that we have shown you earlier. Now on the other side is the area from where where India will be exporting these COVID-19 vaccines. You can see these are the area from where a proper screening will be done, and then they will be offloaded to the runway over here. They will be kept inside an aircraft, and then it will be distributed to the countries who have in fact have asked India to distribute the COVID-19 vaccines that will be manufactured within India. So these are the 2 areas. One is the area where the imported vaccines will be offloaded in the opticooler, and this is the area from where the India will be exporting the COVID-19 vaccines and will be loading it in an aircraft to distribute it to other countries.
We're getting in more voices. Times Network has also spoken to the principal scientific advisor to the government, Professor K. Vijay Raghavan, who says that safety studies here that have been done for COVID vaccines are done rigorously and that any potential side effects are actually very minor. He's also added the government is fully prepared in the vaccination process and that he expects the duration of protection due to vaccine, which is likely to be up to 1 year.
Vaccines are given to healthy people, and therefore the safety studies are very, very rigorously done, because unlike someone who's very badly ill, where the risks may be there, but the benefits are very high, and therefore you can give a drug or a vaccine to them, which has side effects. You can't do that for normal people, where they're otherwise healthy. So the safety standards are very, very high for vaccines. And the side effects, if any, are usually very minor, aches and pains and so on and so forth. How long does protection after vaccination last will be known only with time. We do know about protection after infection, that it lasts at least 6 months, at least, and could be longer. How much longer? We don't know yet. Similarly, about vaccination, we do know from the results of clinical trials that vaccination will protect. How long will that last? We don't know. Typically, it will last again, at least a year is the expectation.
Britain, in fact, has taken another giant step, and this is in the fight against COVID-19 by rolling out COVID vaccine developed by Oxford University pharmaceutical giant AstraZeneca. Dialysis patient there, Brian Pinker, who is 82 years old. He's, of course, in the senior citizen category here as well. He was the first to take the shot of the Oxford University at the Oxford University Hospital. Remember, 4th January, today onwards is when Britain has started the rollout of the vaccination drive there. Now, this development that came in just under a month after Britain's National Health Service started using the vaccine made by Pfizer as well. And with that, we're slipping into a very tiny breather here on the urban debate. The focus, of course, has been the COVID-19 vaccine. Stay on with us. More top issues here in just a bit.